The White House is supposed to be a symbol of honor and power, but behind its doors, some of the biggest scandals in American history took place. Illegal actions, hidden relationships, forbidden secrets. Tonight you will discover 20 shocking scandals connected to US presidents, stories that almost changed the country forever, and some of them are still surrounded by mystery. Richard Nixon, Watergate. Richard Nixon's presidency became forever linked to the most infamous political scandal in American history, Watergate. In 1972, men connected to his re-election campaign were caught breaking into the Democratic Party headquarters inside the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C. Their mission was to install listening devices and steal information on political opponents. What first looked like a simple burglary soon turned into a national crisis. Journalists uncovered that the operation was connected directly to the White House. Even worse, Nixon had installed a secret taping system in the Oval Office, and the recordings proved he knew about the illegal actions and tried to cover them up. As public outrage grew and impeachment became unavoidable, Nixon resigned in 1974. He became the only US president in history to step down in disgrace, forever changing how Americans viewed presidential power. Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky. Bill Clinton became the center of one of the most famous scandals in modern American history after a secret relationship with a White House intern, Monica Lewinsky, was revealed. For a long time, the president publicly denied that anything inappropriate had happened, repeating his famous words, "I did not have a relationship with that woman." However, later evidence proved that the story was not true. The situation quickly turned into a national crisis. Instead of being just a personal issue, it became a legal and political matter, because Clinton was accused of lying under oath. This led to impeachment proceedings, something that had only happened twice before in US history. Although Clinton was not removed from office, the scandal damaged his reputation and shocked the entire country. It showed how a private mistake inside the White House could turn into a global headline and change how people viewed the presidency forever. John F. Kennedy, alleged affairs. John F. Kennedy is remembered as one of the most charismatic presidents in American history. To the public, he appeared as a young, intelligent leader with a perfect family image. However, years after his death, historians and former insiders began to reveal a more complicated private life. According to multiple testimonies and biographies, Kennedy allegedly had several secret relationships while he was in office. Some of these relationships were rumored to involve famous public figures and people with controversial backgrounds, which raised serious security concerns inside the government. If even part of these stories is true, they could have created major national risks during an already tense period of the Cold War. At the time, the media chose to remain silent to protect the image of the presidency, but decades later, the hidden side of JFK's life became one of the most talked about mysteries in White House history. Thomas Jefferson, children with Sally Hemings. For almost 2 centuries, the story that Thomas Jefferson had children with an enslaved woman named Sally Hemings was treated as a rumor. Supporters of Jefferson strongly denied it, and the topic was considered too controversial to openly discuss. However, modern historical research and DNA testing later provided strong evidence that Jefferson was, in fact, the father of several of her children. This discovery shocked the world and forced historians to reconsider the image of one of America's founding fathers. The man who wrote that all men are created equal was also deeply connected to the system of slavery. This contradiction made the story even more powerful and disturbing. The revelation did not just change how people saw Jefferson, it changed how many viewed early American history itself. Warren G. Harding, love letters and secret relationship. Years after Warren G. Harding's death, a shocking discovery changed the way people saw his presidency. A collection of private love letters was revealed, showing that Harding had been involved in a long, secret romantic relationship while he was in office. The letters contained deeply personal and emotional messages that contradicted his public image as a serious and loyal leader. Even more alarming was the claim that the woman he was involved with may have had access to sensitive political information simply by being so close to the president. If those letters had become public during his lifetime, the political fallout would have been enormous, and his presidency could have ended in complete disgrace. Instead, the truth remained hidden for decades, turning Harding's private life into one of the most shocking revelations in White House history. Ulysses S. Grant. Corrupt administration. T is often remembered as a war hero who helped save the Union, and there is no strong evidence that he personally took bribes. However, during his presidency, his administration became one of the most corrupt in American history. Many of the people closest to him were involved in bribery, fraud, illegal contracts, and secret schemes to steal money from the government. Grant trusted his friends and supporters too easily, and several of them used their positions for personal gain. Scandals such as the Whiskey Ring and the Credit Mobilier affair exposed massive corruption surrounding the White House. Even though Grant was not directly implicated, his reputation was severely damaged because he failed to control the people around him. His presidency became a powerful example of how loyalty and trust can lead to disaster when placed in the wrong hands. Andrew Jackson. Illegal marriage. Scandal personal life became a national scandal long before he ever entered the White House. His wife, Rachel, was accused of not being legally divorced from her first husband at the time she married Jackson. Although it was later revealed that the situation was mainly caused by paperwork errors and confusion over the divorce process, political opponents used the story as a powerful weapon against him. During Jackson's presidential campaign, newspapers attacked him relentlessly, accusing him of living in an immoral relationship. The public outrage was so intense that it caused enormous emotional stress for Rachel, who later died shortly before Jackson's inauguration. Many historians believe that the scandal deeply affected Jackson and made him even more aggressive and distrustful of his enemies. What began as a personal mistake turned into one of the most painful and public controversies in early American political history. Lincoln's White House. Seances and spiritualism. After the death of their beloved son Willie, Mary Todd Lincoln fell into deep grief and began searching for comfort in spiritualism. According to several historical accounts, she invited so-called mediums and spiritual advisors into the White House and held secret seances in an attempt to communicate with the dead. Candles were lit, hands were joined, and participants claimed to hear strange noises, see moving objects, and feel unseen presences in the room. Although Abraham Lincoln himself was more skeptical, he reportedly allowed these gatherings to continue because he did not want to increase his wife's suffering. When word of these seances began to spread, many people were shocked at the idea of spiritual rituals taking place inside the most important building in the country. These mysterious meetings turned the White House into a place of grief, hope, and unexplainable belief, adding a dark and haunting chapter to Lincoln's presidency. Ronald Reagan. Iran-Contra affair. During Ronald Reagan's presidency, a secret operation was uncovered that shocked the entire nation. Members of his administration were found to have secretly sold weapons to Iran, a country that was officially considered an enemy of the United States at the time. Even more controversial, the money from those sales was then used to support rebel groups in Nicaragua known as the Contras, despite the fact that Congress had specifically Zaprishino funding them. When the truth was revealed, it caused a massive political scandal. Investigations were launched, documents were destroyed, and officials testified in court. Although Reagan claimed he did not fully understand the operation, several members of his government were charged and convicted for their roles. The Iran-Contra affair showed how illegal actions could occur even at the highest levels of power and raised serious questions about how much control a president truly has over his own administration. J. Edgar Hoover's files on presidents. J. Edgar Hoover, the longtime director of the FBI, was one of the most powerful and feared men in Washington. For decades, he secretly collected personal information on politicians, celebrities, and even presidents of the United States. These hidden files reportedly contained private details, rumors, and potentially damaging secrets. Because of this information, Hoover gained enormous behind-the-scenes power. Many presidents were afraid to challenge him or remove him from his position, fearing what he might reveal. As a result, Hoover kept his job through multiple presidencies, becoming almost untouchable. Some historians believe that Hoover used these secret files as a form of silent control. He didn't need armies or weapons. Information was his true power. This created a shadow authority operating inside the US government for decades, hidden from the public eye. Woodrow Wilson. Secret control by his wife. In 1919, during Woodrow Wilson's presidency, he suffered a severe stroke that left him partially paralyzed and unable to fully perform his duties. The White House tried to keep the true extent of his condition a secret from the public. Officially, Wilson was still the president. Unofficially, something very unusual was happening. Many historians now believe that Wilson's wife, Edith Wilson, began controlling access to him and quietly managing important decisions on his behalf. She reviewed documents, decided which matters were important enough for the president, and carefully controlled who was allowed to speak to him. Some even call her the first female president in American history, although no one ever elected her. At the time, the American people had no idea that the country might have been led not by an elected official, but by the First Lady behind closed doors. John Adams. Monarch dream. The second president of the United States strongly believed in a powerful and respected executive role. According to historical accounts, he once considered giving the president a more royal style title, such as Your Highness or even Your Majesty. For a nation that had just fought a war to escape monarchy, this idea sounded almost like betrayal. Many Americans were shocked and angry, believing Adams wanted to turn the young democracy into a new royal system. His political opponents used this against him, painting him as someone hungry for power and status. Although the idea was never officially adopted, the controversy damaged his public image and became one of the earliest political scandals in American history, showing how fragile and sensitive the new American democracy really was. Calvin Coolidge. Strange White House life, often called Silent Cal, was known for being one of the quietest and most reserved presidents in American history. Inside the White House, his extreme silence and isolation created an atmosphere of mystery and discomfort. Staff members claimed that entire days could pass without him speaking more than a few words. Some even said his presence felt cold and distant, as if he barely noticed the world around him. This unusual behavior sparked rumors among employees and visitors. People wondered if he was hiding something, struggling emotionally, or simply observing everything in silence. Meetings were awkward, dinners were quiet, and even close advisors found it difficult to understand what he was truly thinking. While there is no proof of illegal actions, Coolidge's strange, withdrawn lifestyle made him one of the most mysterious figures to ever live inside the White House. Herbert Hoover. Stock market crash presidency became forever linked to one of the darkest moments in American economic history, the stock market crash of 1929 and the beginning of the Great Depression. When the economy collapsed, millions of Americans lost their jobs, their savings, and even their homes almost overnight. Breadlines formed, businesses closed, and entire families were left in extreme poverty. Many people blamed Hoover for not acting fast or strong enough to stop the disaster. Although the crisis had deeper causes, his slow response made him the public target. Shantytowns built by the homeless were even cruelly nicknamed Hoovervilles in his dishonor. By the end of his presidency, his name had become a symbol not of leadership but of failure and despair. Nixon secret taping system. During his presidency, Richard Nixon made one of the most ironic and dangerous decisions in White House history. He secretly installed a recording system in the Oval Office and several other rooms to capture private conversations and meetings. Nixon believed these tapes would serve as protection, proof of his innocence, and a valuable historical record of his presidency. Instead, the recording system became the very thing that destroyed him. The tapes revealed that Nixon had discussed the Watergate break-in and actively worked to cover it up. His own words were now undeniable evidence. Investigators, journalists, and Congress demanded access to the recordings, and once they became public, there was no way back. What Nixon saw as a secret weapon for control became the ultimate proof of his guilt, a decision that ended his presidency in total humiliation. Shocking language and behavior. Lyndon B. Johnson was known not only for his political power, but also for his extremely shocking and unpredictable behavior. In private meetings, even with high-ranking officials and international guests, he often used crude language, told inappropriate jokes, and spoke in a way that made people feel uncomfortable. Many of his aides later admitted that they were shocked by the way a U.S. president could behave behind closed doors. Johnson believed his aggressive and dominant personality gave him an advantage in negotiations. Some called it the Johnson treatment. Others simply called it disturbing. While his words were not always illegal, they crossed social boundaries so often that his behavior became one of the most uncomfortable and controversial aspects of life inside the White House. alleged affair with his secretary, Franklin D. Roosevelt, is remembered as one of the most influential presidents in American history, leading the country through the Great Depression and World War II. However, behind his powerful public image, historians have long debated the nature of his private life. According to several biographies and historical accounts, Roosevelt may have had a long and discreet relationship with his secretary, Lucy Mercer. At the time, Roosevelt's wife, Eleanor, reportedly discovered their connection, which caused great tension in their marriage. Although the relationship was supposedly ended, Lucy later reappeared in Roosevelt's life and was even present shortly before his death. Because of this, rumors and questions have followed historians for decades. There is no official proof of everything that happened, but the mystery surrounding this alleged affair remains one of the most talked about and controversial aspects of Roosevelt's presidency.
There is no evidence here, it's just a rumor. But you can't disprove it either.
Kennedy family, alleged mafia connections. For decades, rumors have followed the Kennedy family suggesting that members of the American mafia may have helped John F. Kennedy win the 1960 presidential election. According to several investigations and testimonies from former criminals, organized crime figures allegedly influenced certain voting areas in exchange for political favors. These claims were never fully proven in court, but they raised serious concerns at the time. Even more controversial is the fact that once in office, Kennedy and his brother Robert launched a strong campaign against organized crime. This led many to believe that the mafia felt betrayed and may have turned against the Kennedy family. Although much of this story remains surrounded by mystery, missing evidence, and classified information, the idea that the White House and organized crime could have been connected remains one of the darkest and most disturbing rumors in American political history. Harry S. Truman, hiding UFO investigations. During Harry S. Truman's presidency, something strange was happening, far above the skies. In the late 1940s, reports of unidentified flying objects flooded the United States. Pilots, military officers, civilians, all across the country claimed to see mysterious objects moving at impossible speeds. The most famous case took place in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. At first, the government stated that a flying disc had crashed. Then, just as quickly, they changed their story. They claimed it was only a weather balloon, but official documents released decades later revealed something much more disturbing. According to declassified files, President Truman approved the creation of secret projects, including early versions of what would later become Project Blue Book, dedicated entirely to investigating UFO sightings. These investigations were kept hidden from the public, reports were classified, witnesses were silenced, evidence disappeared. Some historians believe Truman feared mass hysteria. Others believe the discoveries were simply too shocking to reveal. To this day, thousands of documents regarding UFO sightings during Truman's time remain redacted or missing. The question is, what did they really find in the sky, and why was it buried for so long? Secrets still classified. The truth America may never see even today. Long after many of these presidents are gone, one terrifying reality remains. Thousands of White House documents are still classified, locked away, hidden under the label of national security. These files contain information about secret operations, underground meetings, illegal orders, hidden relationships, presidential illnesses, foreign agreements, intelligence scandals, and actions that the public was never meant to see. Every year, historians and journalists request access to these materials. And every year, many requests are denied. Why? Because, according to the government, releasing these documents could damage international relations, reveal intelligence methods, put lives at risk, or shake the foundations of American history. Some files are sealed for 50 years, others for 75, and some do not even have a release date. That means there are secrets about US presidents that you may never know, scandals that may never be revealed, crimes that may never be confirmed, truths that may remain buried forever. And the most disturbing question is, if these secrets are really harmless, why are they still hidden? Scandals, secrets, lies, and hidden lives, all buried behind the walls of the White House. For decades, presidents were seen as untouchable symbols of power, honor, and leadership. But behind closed doors, the truth was often very different. Hidden relationships, illegal orders, cover-ups, classified files, and decisions that could have destroyed the nation if they were ever revealed at the wrong moment. Some of these stories only became public after decades of silence. Others remain locked away, labeled called top secret, hidden from the world because the truth is still considered too dangerous, too shameful, or too powerful to reveal. And the most unsettling part is knowing that what you have just heard is probably only a small part of the real story. Behind every official portrait, every speech, every historic photo, there may still be a secret waiting to be exposed. So now it's your turn. Which of these scandals shocked you the most? Which president do you want to learn more about? And what should the next video uncover? With secret tunnels, forbidden documents, hidden bunkers, or the darkest presidential conspiracies in history? Leave your answer in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, and remember, the truth is always closer than you think.